specialization program established 2015.
Other than that, provide solutions that can help maintain and overcome health problems as well. We, the clinical pathologists and all the residents, always give the best effort to be the leader of education and service to support the vision and mission of Dr. Sutomo Hospital. The Central Laboratory strives to continuously improve and maintain good quality services in accordance with international standards.
The long and winding journey has been traversed by the faculty in its efforts to transform the knowledge in the field of medical science and devote science to improve the welfare of the nation, the state, and humanity. University Teaching Hospital is one of our affiliation hospitals where the residents can improve their knowledge and skill.
pandemi COVID-19 ini, program pendidikan dokter spesialis patologi klinik turut berkontribusi, khususnya pada bidang diagnostik. Beberapa hal yang telah dilakukan antara lain melakukan screening rapid antibody, rapid antigen, swab PCR, dan beberapa pemeriksaan laboratorium lain. Semoga dengan ikhtiar dan ketekunan pelayanan kita bersama, pandemi COVID-19 dapat segera berakhir.
Faculty of Medicine at Langga University is the second oldest faculty in Indonesia.
Dr. Sutomo Hospital is a public hospital owned by the government with most complete services in East Indonesia. In its development, Dr. Sutomo Hospital continues to develop Central Laboratory of Clinical Pathology.
Clinical Pathology Department also has 5 divisions of subspecialization program, established 2015.
Other than that, provide solutions that can help maintain and overcome health problems until now. clinical pathologist, and all the residents always give the best effort to be the leader of education and service to support the vision and mission of Dr. Sutomo Hospital. The Central Laboratory strives to continuously improve and maintain good quality services in accordance with international standards.
The long and winding journey has been traversed by the faculty in its efforts to transform the knowledge in the field of medical science and devout science to improve the welfare of the nation, the state, and humanity. University Teaching Hospital is one of our affiliation hospitals where the residents can improve their knowledge and skill.
Assalamualaikum, Prof. Narazah.
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Rafida. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Prof. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Just a bit macam tak boleh bernafas lah. Baru habis meeting 1:30 tadi.
Oh,
Ethics
I hope you
meeting.
have a good rest, Prof.
Okay, I will sleep after our discussion. Not to worry.
Dr. Betty, should we wait for more participants or?
I think we can start, yeah, Dr. Rafida, because the time is 1 o'clock.
Okay, Dr. Betty.
I will start our session. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Scientific Writing Lecture Series in Clinical Pathology Department. This webinar is organized by Faculty of Medicine Universitas Erlangga in collaboration with the Clinical Pathology Department. My name is Rovida, and I'm very delighted to have professors, doctors, and colleagues at this event today. Previously, we have learned about writing high-impact journal articles and publication of case report or case study and technical report. And today we will continue the last lecture that will discuss about ethics in human research by Professor Dr. Narazah Mohd Yusoff, MBBS DCP Master of Medical Science, PhD. Before we jump to the lecture, please kindly see the agenda for today. This is the agenda for today. There will be a lecture from Professor Dr. Narazah Mohd Yusoff, MBBS DCP, Master of Medical Science, PhD, and we'll continue with the discussion. Before we start our lecture, please allow me to read the curriculum vitae from Dr. Betty Agustina Tambunan, Clinical Pathology Consultant, as the moderator for today. Dr. Betty graduated from the Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Sumatera Utara in 2001, graduated as a clinical pathologist from Universitas Erlangga in 2010, graduated as a clinical pathology consultant in allergy immunology in 2016, and Dr. Betty is a lecturer in clinical pathology department, Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Erlangga since 2010. Dr. Betty is a clinical pathology consultant at Dr. Sutomo General Hospital Surabaya since 2010. Dr. Betty also the head of a blood transfusion center at Dr. Sutomo General Hospital Surabaya since 2018. Dr. Betty, time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rovida, for kindly introducing me. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This time we will continue the scientific writing lecture series. This session titled Ethic in Human Research. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum, Prof. Narazah.
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Betty.
Are you ready, Prof?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, we are honored for your willingness to share some of your experience in medical research. Yeah, without further ado, please you can start your lecture, Prof. Time is yours. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Betty. I will just close my video and I will share my slides. Yeah.
Yeah, Prof.
Okay, boleh nampak ya? Okay, so again, nice to meet everyone here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat petang, salam sejahtera kepada Dr. Betty, Dr. Rofida dan rakan-rakan saya, profesor-profesor, doktor-doktor dan juga pelajar-pelajar lah jika ada ya. So saya actually lecture saya ni more of a discussion lah and just sharing my experience lah, being the the deputy chair of research human ethics committee di USM lah. Alright, so some of the information mungkin tak sama lah dengan apa yang dipraktiskan di Erlangga University or Sutomo Hospital. So if there's any question pertaining to the presentation, kindly interrupt my lecture and ask questions lah. Alright, so my title is Understanding Issues and Challenges in Human Research Ethics Application. Yeah. Okay, I start with challenges lah, and the challenges and the issues are actually commonly raised lah by our researchers, whether they are academicians or or they are postgraduate students, or even sometimes we do get application from undergraduate students, all right? So the discussion will be focused on why we need to get, ethics, and then the functions of IRB lah. IRB actually stands for the Institutional Research Board of university lah. They may go by different names, ya. Mungkin di Airlangga or Sutomo Hospital dia panggil jawatankuasa something human research. So the general name is IRB lah, Institutional Research Board. Okay. And then the common issues usually encountered by our researchers through the process of getting the ethical approval, and then frequently asked questions by our staffs, our students, So let me start this lecture by focusing on the main issue. All right, why do we need to get ethical approval when we are doing research pertaining to human, all right? So by the way, this lecture is focused on human ethics application. Animal saya tak cover lah, because animal research actually is under different committee. So why do we need to get ethics approval when we are doing research involving human subjects? Because we want to conduct research in an ethical environment, all right? And not only ethical environment, we want to do the research with integrity. We want to ensure that our research is conducted in an ethical and with integrity. The data that you get, we are all concerned, our data that we get, we want to ensure that this is a credible data, all right? So how to get a credible data? One of the factor is, you have to do your research conduct in ethical environment, all right, to ensure integrity. And how to conduct your research in ethical environment and with integrity? We need to respect our first and foremost, subject or client, who are the human subject. We want to protect them, all right? So we want to make sure that they are protected at all times. And not only that, not only we want to protect them, we have to respect them. We are all, humans. We are taught to respect animals as well. They are creation of God. So of course we have to respect human, our human or our colleagues, and then especially so if they become our research subjects. All right. So we want to ensure that the research is conducted in an ethical and with integrity. Okay. So I don't know whether the issues are the same, but the issues I tackle from the point of issues aspect lah, because sometimes our researchers or our students do not understand getting human ethics approval. They may think that if you need to get ethical approval if you want to take blood samples, if you want to get tissue from the patients or the subject. And then our students sometimes think that social research, because this is just interview, all right? So social research, just interview or focus group discussion for that matter, or interviews of a subject, no need, tak payah dapat ethical approval lah, alright, especially kalau social science research. But not only medical research kena minta ethical approval, tapi social science research kan kena minta juga ethical approval. How? Why do I say so? Because sometimes social research, contoh dia nak dia nak tengok teenage pregnancy, alright, in teenage pregnancy in women yang pernah undergo teenage pregnancy, and then that was long time ago when they were younger, so you want to interview them. Tapi bila you tanya they all pasal teenage pregnancy, it may recollect or initiate their past problem, dan dia mungkin sedih, dia mungkin menangis walaupun itu social research juga, right? So anything that can elicit or anything that can elicit psychological stress ke apa ke in social research. So social research kalau dia deal dengan human, dia kena get ethical committee jugalah, alright? And then the other issue is that second point, IRB review study protocol that includes objective and methodology to ensure scientific merit. I would like to stress the proposal is not evaluated by someone from my field. Okay, this one actually pertaining to the scientific merit lah, alright. So we do get complaint lah daripada kita punya researchers. Dia kata tugas ethics committee adalah untuk tengok whether we treat the participant ethically and with integrity, alright. So dia kata, why should you comment, we as reviewers, why we comment on the scientific merit? All right, and they also said that scientific merit, the proposal is not related from someone from the field. So let me focus on the scientific merit lah. Scientific merit ni, kita as reviewers in the ethics committee, kita tengok juga kalau scientific merit of that study is not justified, not strong. For example lah, people already have done the study in different countries, in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Japan. People already know the outcome of that study. And then you want to repeat the study in your institution. The reason you say this because it has not been done before in Malaysia, contoh dia. Alright. So is this credible? Is there a scientific merit? Why do you want to repeat a study that has been done that already have a sound, same results, all right? So this is not ethical because you are wasting the taxpayers' money. You're also wasting the time of the participant because they are participating in a study where you already know the outcome will be, correct? Okay. So next is, okay, we do get comments lah from our researchers. They said that the ethics committee is very strict. All right. So even the top tier journal editors never strict, particularly and fussy. Yeah. And they say that the ethics committee is very strict because we can comment on the scientific merit. That's one issue. And then the other thing that commonly arise is students, being students, especially our postgraduate students, they already completed the study, right? And then they want to go for the viva. Lepas tu baru dia dapat news that sometimes our external examiner is very strict. They say, okay, did you get any ethical approval? And then student tu masa viva tu baru dia discover that dia tak dapat ethical approval. Okay, and sometimes in our university, the external examiner tak mau teruskan. Okay, sebab dia tak ada ethical approval. Alright, so dia sudah ready lah, dia dah publish, or dah nak publish, dah habis dia punya research, lepas tu dia pergi viva, rupanya dia tak dapat ethical approval. Dan pernah berlaku dia, it has happened before lah that, the viva has to be postponed because they don't have ethical approval. Okay. Alright, next. This is our organization lah, that we follow lah in our university. Yeah. So I show the chart here to show that the ethics committee actually should be independent lah. Okay, it's not under the hierarchy of Vice Chancellor. So being an ethics committee, the ethics committee too must be independent, must be, must be not influenced by other committees or other people. Okay, so you can see here we have the Vice Chancellor being the topmost authorized person in the university, and then you see a dotted line here, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of RNI, Research and Innovation. You can see a dotted line here, and then the Vice Chancellor and then Chairperson of Jawatan Kuasa. We call it Jawatan Kuasa Etika Penyelidikan Manusia USM lah. So we are independent in the sense that the dotted line here is because administratively macam kalau kita nak minta budget, nak minta staff, we have to ask from the Deputy Vice Chancellor. Alright, but the line here, Vice Chancellor, meaning that we are directly under Vice Chancellor, but the Vice Chancellor cannot influence the Ethics Committee. Tak boleh Vice Chancellor or siapa-siapa tak boleh kata, okay, tolong can you change the decision, things like that lah. All right, so we are independent and we have 6 subcommittees lah. All right, and we also have a secretary and secretariat staff. So we have 1 chairperson and then 6 co-chairs lah. And these are the charter organization or organization chart. Okay, so our ethics committee is internationally accredited, all right, and is listed under Office for Human Research Protections, United States Department of Health and Human Services since 2004. So every 3 years we get audited lah, all right, and we have to comply lah. So our next audit will be September this year, yeah. And we are in compliance with Declaration of Helsinki and also International Conference of Harmonization or ICH guidelines. I'll tell a little bit about Declaration of Helsinki, all right? So the Declaration of Helsinki, you can get the website here, all right? So this, this contain about 36 statements lah pertaining to the ethical principles for medical research. So any human ethics committee usually will comply to this Helsinki ethical principles for medical research. So there are many, many titles lah. So as I said, they have about 36, if I'm not mistaken. So I just pick some that are relevant to the talk today. I number here because they are numbered, the principles are numbered from 1 until 30 something. So I'll just pick the one that is relevant to the talk lah. So if you want to do research on human, medical research on human, this is also applicable to also social lah. Okay, we use the same thing, but this declaration is govern ethical principles for medical research involving human. So if you look at principle number 7, medical research is subject to ethical standards, all right, that promote and ensure respect all human subject and protect their health and right. So not only we maintain the standard, but we have to ensure respect, and not only that, we have to protect their health and their rights, right? So number 8, the primary purpose of medical research is that to generate new knowledge, all right? But in doing so, we cannot overlook the right and the interest of the individual research subjects, all right? So their rights and their interests come first, even though your main thing, you as a medical researcher, you want to generate new knowledge, but if anything arises pertaining to the research subject, you have to consider them first rather than your research matter or research proposals. All right. And then number 9, it is the duty of physicians who are involved in medical research to protect the life, health, dignity, integrity, right to self-determination, privacy, and confidentiality of personal information of research subjects. All right. Sometimes we as researchers, sometimes you need to get information from patient. All right. Sometimes from, for example, from medical records. Medical records where you don't see the patient, see the subject physically, but the information from the medical record is actually protected as well. So, this is secondary data from medical record, but you are also subjected to the medical protection rights of the patient. So in this aspect, we have to ask the subjects to sign NDA or non-agreement, non-NDA, I can't remember what this stands for what. Okay, so the example that I quote here is that even if you get secondary data from the patient record, you still have to get ethical approval, okay, from the ethics committee. Okay, so from what I've heard so far, we may think that research is not easy. I mean, we as academics, expectation from us, we have 3 major expectation amanah kita lah untuk kerja. Being a researcher, and then we have to teach. We are academician, and then if you involve in clinical service, you also have to do clinical service. So we usually like that lah as clinical pathologists. We have 3 main duties. Tak termasuk lagi community work lah. So our main duty is research, teaching, and then clinical service. On top of that, the university say, okay, I want the ranking to be higher this year compared to last year. All right. I mean, we as academician everywhere lah, di mana-mana kita kena perform research, kena publish, and then if you don't publish, you may perish. Sometimes the contract will not be renewed. So you have to ask for grant, write proposal, and then if your study involve animal or human ethics, you have to ask for ethical approval. You have to sign to fill up many documents. So research is not easy. All right, and then you have to ask for ethical approval. You have to go another hurdle. But does this kill our interest as a researcher, as an academician? No, we still want to pursue our research because we are our interest, our ambition, you want to be nak jadi lecturer di universiti, nak mengajar, nak beri servis kepada pesakit, and then nak buat research. So that's why the ethics committee is here to help the researchers lah, making it less easy, making the ethics approval is the ethics committee or IRB of a university. They are there to make to help the researchers. Okay, and then it's not meant as extra hurdle lah, not bukan kata cabaran baru, tambahan cabaran untuk for you to be successful. All right, so the one that is in white yellow box here is some of the question that our researchers ask. For example, in our university, the researchers, the resource for the grants is not only from the university, but also from other ministries lah. For example, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Science and Technology. So sometimes the grant already has been approved. by the bodies or the institution or the ministries, in other words the external grant. The grant has been approved, and then because the grant actually involve human, so the researchers have to go to the ethics committee lah. All right, they have to apply for the grant. So what our university practice is, the money will not be released until they get ethical approval, even though the grant already approved by the ministries. Okay, so sometimes we get this question, the researchers are not happy. Why the ethics committee, still look at our proposal, whereas the grant already has been approved by the awarding body. Okay, so these are some of the questions that were posed. Okay, so the ethics committee actually is there to help you lah. For example, even though the grant has been approved, but sometimes there are points that were not mentioned by the evaluator, by the reviewers. Okay, so the ethics committee, sometimes they are expert, so they can give suggestion which may improve lah the output of the grant, for example, in publication. All right, so never ever think that getting ethics approval is a hurdle. All right, it's more of to help lah. Okay, and it's something like we see it as we are facilitating the researchers. Okay, so what is ethics? What am I talking about? Ethics. Ethics is very subjective. All right, how do we define ethics? It's the rules of behavior based on ideas about what is morally good and what is bad, what people think, a group of people that usually say, okay, this is good, this is bad. So it's very subjective. Sometimes we say that the person is not morally good, but it may not be like that for another person, from another person's point of view. But I do agree with you all. I'm sure you also agree with me that we have a good heart, we have conscience. We being clinical practitioners, I'm sure we have a good heart. We want to work, we want to do the best for the patients. All right, so we do the best for the patients by giving the best of treatment, also by doing good research as well. So it's something to us, like ethics is like a compass to us, but this compass doesn't show you north, south, east and west, but a moral compass for us how to be happy with life, be happy, treat people well. Okay, and we are aware of the value of good. All right, we are fair, we respect, we are kind, we are honest, we have integrity, and then we want to contribute, give a good contribution, want to give a good service. Okay, so that's our moral conscience lah, or our compass. All right, and then that is the general ethics, and then we need to apply this ethics into our research as well. And here when we talk about research, we ourselves, we have to think about others. That's why I say here research ethics is ethics from the heart. You always think of others, think the research participants as as ourselves. All right, and because of this I say that research ethics, when you do research in human subject, it always brings us a very special situation, because we need to consider whether contoh dia lah, we ask the patient to come for blood taking 10 times to the hospital, but have we ever wondered, do they have the economic resources to come 10 times to the hospital? Do they need support? If not, you have to consider giving honorarium, right? And then let's say you want to interview patient. Okay, your interview is 3 hours. I'm sure you yourself will be tired if you interview the patient for 3 hours. So you always bring out the good in you, ethics from the heart. You consider for others. And then you know, sometimes we get so engrossed in our research. You want to, you know, achieve the outcome, the KPI, the, you know, the whatever that is expected. Sometimes we forget that another human is, you know, is part of your research as well. So sometimes it's easy to miss the basic right of our participant. And then, you know, if you miss all this, you know, sometimes patients do not want to come or do not want to participate as well. Okay. So it's good to read about, you know, what is research ethics as well. All right. So in our university, I think also applicable as well. So these are the categories of the type of research that require for researchers to get approval from the Human Research Ethics Committee. Okay, so these are the 4 situations whenever we are doing research involving human participant, whether just interview or focus group discussion. Okay, that's one situation. And then, of course, when you want to get samples, biopsy, you know, blood, urine, even excreta, feces, for example. Some may argue that, okay, researchers no need to get ethical approval because urine, you know, they will be flushed out anyway. But still, you have, you know, consider that as a important for you and important to get the ethics approval. All right. And then the other thing is, if you get data which is derived from human, for example, you know, the secondary data that I mentioned just now. And then last but not least, if you want to do research using products to be tested on human, for example, medical device, all right, or new, you know, new form of new drugs, for example. Okay, so they are going to be tested on humans. Sometimes we forget, you know, when we make a new medical device, but this also should get ethics approval because you want to test on humans. So I hope we are clear about the type of research requiring approval from the Human Research Ethics Committee. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The other one is those are the type of research. And then the next is the on the researcher themselves. All right. So if the for the researcher, okay, if they are from USM, they have to get ethical approval. All right. These are the situation. First is the principal investigator. Principal investigator can be a student or, you know, or not student, staffs. All right. So if they are, the PI is from USM, they must get. And then the other one is the subjects or samples are recruited from USM. Okay, we have our hospital, so they have to get ethics approval if the subjects or samples are USM. The other one is if the research is conducted within USM, and then the funding is from USM. All right. So if you fulfill any one of these, if you fall into the category, then you have to apply for ethical approval. All right. So of course, let's say funding is not from USM, funding is from outside, but he is a person, a staff of USM. Of course, he fit into the criteria because he's the PI from USM. Okay. Okay. So Human Research Ethics Committee, our main aim is to protect the participants, all right, as you can see just now. The second is to protect the researchers, and third is to protect institution. Why do I say to protect the researchers? Because if, let's say, you test a new drug, a new medical device, for example, and then something happened to the patient and it was discovered that he doesn't have any ethical approval. And then medical legal or complaint can be directed to the researchers. All right. So if he get ethical approval, he will be protected. And then also institution. All right. So this is pertaining to the medical legal aspect. So if that researcher is working in that institution, if there happen to be medical legal issues, sometimes the institution, if the researcher is in the wrong, then the institution is also at disadvantage, because sometimes they have to pay compensation for the participant. All right. So Human Research Ethics Committee, why is it so important to get the ethical approval? Is to protect all these parties, participants, researchers, and institution. So we tend to forget that institution also might be incriminated if you don't do ethical research. All right. So back to the Declaration of Helsinki, World Medical Association Declaration of Helsinki, pertaining to risk, burdens, and benefits. I quote item 17. It states here that all medical research involving human subject must be preceded by careful assessment of predictable risks and burdens to the individuals and groups involved in the research in comparison with foreseeable benefits to them. All right. So in this aspect, the participant may be, confronted or maybe associated with risk, burden, and benefit. That's why the statement come here lah. We as researchers, we have to carefully assess what are the risks and the burden to the subjects. All right, because if you don't assess this, you may be, involved in all these litigation complaints as well. All right, so you must weigh what are the benefit, what is the risk for the participant. All right, so you must let's say you still, there is a risk to the subject, to the participant, but the study has to go on, so you must take measures to minimize the risk. All right, and this risk must be continuously monitored, assessed, and documented by the researcher. All right, so if there are risks in the study, it doesn't mean that the study cannot go on. The study has to be carried on, because otherwise you won't have information for, let's say, better treatment of the patient. So if the risks are there, you have to ensure that the risks are minimized and the risks are monitored. Okay, all right. We get ethical approval in relation to, just now, as I said, institution, our university demands that you get grants. All right, and then when you get grants, we as clinical pathologists, we have the obligation to, once you get the money, you have the obligation to spend the money wisely on the subject. Okay, because if you don't get grants, then your performance will be affected. So in other words, ethical approval indirectly you get it because the institution demands it, or how the institution demands by getting by you having to apply for grants. Okay, so that's indirect. And then the other reason for getting ethical approval is publication. Okay, the first thing, you just know the institution wants us to get grant. Then when you get grant, you have to do medical research. Then you have to get ethical approval. The other instance is publication. We as researchers, we are expected to get to publish, because I'm sure you know the phrase kan, publish or perish. Betul tak, Dr. Betty? You either publish or you perish. Okay, so of course bukan kata untuk grant sahaja, bukan kata untuk you punya personal promotion sahaja, but if you get a grant and then you don't publish, you don't share, meaning that you don't share your information with the society, it's not ethical as well, because we have used the money that is being given by the government, through the government, by the society, to spend wisely, and the public has a right to know the outcome of the study. All right, so we need to publish, And now most of the journals, they demand or they need approval from the Human Ethics Committee. All right, so many of the publications now, they want to see the proof that you get ethical approval. All right, and also, sometimes consent from the patient, from the subjects as well. Okay, so of course lah, when you publish, you don't perish, you get the money, you get the promotion, and then your information, your CV will be improved, and then you can ask for a higher post. All right, but not only that, you give back to the community. The community has given you money, you do the research, and then you share the subjects with the community, and then the community will benefit from the outcome of the study. All right. All right, so we know the principles of ethics in human research, which follows beneficence. That means benefits outweigh the risks, and then non-maleficence, autonomy, fairness, and justice. All right, autonomy is the subjects have a right to refuse the study if the subjects think that they don't want to participate for some reason or the other. And then we have to be fair, and we have to to apply justice to all the subjects. All right, and also non-maleficence. Okay, all right. So a little bit about the review process. All right, so the researchers want to apply for the ethics approval now. So usually they have to submit, not usually, but they have to submit their research proposal, and the research proposal is what you submit to your university or to other awarding bodies. All right, so the research proposal is like any other proposal. It has to have a literature review, good to be detailed, and then the guide is to find the knowledge gap. What is known, what is not known, why do you want to repeat the study? All right, the novelty of the study. Let's say if you want to repeat the study again, you have to justify why is it different. All right, so these are the guidelines of writing a good proposal, not only affecting your application but also your ethics approval. So the ethics committee, the reviewers also look for this novelty of study. How is it different? So how to go all about? You need to read lots and lots of publications related. Okay, good literature review is very important. And then good justification for the research. You have to list out what is the problem statement. All right, why do you want to do the study? What is the justification? What's the problem statement? What is the problem that you want to address? So referring again to the Helsinki Declaration. So there's a section on scientific requirements and research protocol related to the scientific merit of the study lah. Why is it pertinent or important to be in this declaration of Helsinki medical ethical principle for medical research? So because medical research involving human subjects must conform to generally accepted scientific principles and be based through knowledge of scientific literature. All right, that's the importance. And then also the design and performance of each research study involving human subjects must be clearly described and justified in a research protocol. So this relates again very importantly the literature review. You have to do lots and lots of literature review why you want to do the study, because you do not want to repeat the study, and you have to comply to the scientific merit and scientific principles. All right, okay, so thorough knowledge of scientific literature is very, very important. Okay. All right, talking about the protocol now, another thing that is important is properly trained researchers. All right, researchers must be properly trained in their area. is very important because the relevant researchers only then will know the risks associated so that they can assess truly and fairly. And then, a relevant researcher also will ask the right research questions. And not only that, the right interpretation of data. So we may discover that we may conclude that you need a lot of people in the study. We cannot work alone. Usually we never work alone when you do research. All right, you need people that know how to interpret the data. All right, ask the right research question, and then benefit the outweigh or weigh the benefits and the risks. So because of that, that's why we try to be inclusive as possible, not to be stingy, and invite all who can give input. That's why we see institutions, institutions or universities on awarding bodies that award grants. They go for the trend is disciplinary research, translational research, transdisciplinary research. That's why we have all kind of trans, where the research is across boundaries. And for example, social science together with medical, together with electrical, and they jive, they bond together. They are not separated. They are all important, equally important. Okay, so that's the current practice of research trends in universities today. Okay, so transdisciplinary, because each and every one of them have their own expertise, which when they meet together, they can perform very good research with sound justification. All right, so a multidisciplinary team is very important here, or transdisciplinary, whatever you call it. Okay, and then the objective must be very clear. Objective is based on the justification of the study, the research questions, and the research hypothesis that have been put forward. Okay, objective must be clear, must be firm, and most important, achievable. Okay. So sometimes we as researchers, we as reviewers, we also look for things like weak objective lah, which is very general. Sometimes we see, the objective to study is very general, to investigate. Is again very general word. So we may consider to be more, using more stronger or more firm objective, for example, instead of to study, to determine, and then to identify, to compare, if it's comparing between two different groups or two different methods. All right. So these are examples of stronger objective. Okay. And then this also will help with the choice of the right study design. For example, if you want to determine something, the study design is, maybe prospective or retrospective study, and then comparison is, or identify, be it RCT or control trial, for example. Okay. So usually it will help the choice of the study design. And then methods, I put here a very complicated methods. All right, so we don't want to be complicated as this. We want the method to be clear, can be, achieved. And on top of that, the methods also can be reciprocated or can be, repeated by other researchers when they read your publication or your papers. So the methods must be clear, because, if you use the wrong method, then you won't get a conclusive results. And when you don't get conclusive results because your methods is poor, then the research is not publishable. All right. So we don't want to publish rubbish. All right. Otherwise, we can get, we will land in trouble as well. You may end up, the university might call you, and ask you to to explain why do you publish rubbish, because the medical or the academic fraternity complain about this your results, all right, based on the wrong methods. Okay, so is it important to publish your study, all right, as stated here by the Helsinki Declaration regarding research registration and publication and dissemination of results. All right. So item 36. Researchers, authors, sponsors, editors, and publishers all have ethical obligation with regard to publication and dissemination of the result of the research. We researchers have a duty to make publicly available the results of our research and also be accountable for the completeness and accuracy of their report. You may think that if you get a negative result, you don't want to publish. Negative and inconclusive result as well as positive result must be published or otherwise made publicly available. All right, so that is our obligation as researcher, and also comply with the declaration ethical principles for medical research. All right, so we have the obligation to publish and disseminate our knowledge irrespective of the results, provided your methods are justified and also sound. Okay, so remember our obligation to publish. Okay, and then also our statistics, statistical, the strength of the study, the power of the study. You have to ensure that the results are credible as well. Okay, so that's why we have statistical analysis. What's the correct population that you want to study, the number of people, the number of participants. All right, so numbers matter, and get the statistics right, and we can always ask the help of our friends in statistics. All right, I'm sure there are experts, so many experts around. Okay, sometimes we can only do a pilot study, so pilot study is sometimes is unavoidable. So for pilot study, you also have to justify the number of participants that you want to do the research on. Okay, and then vulnerable group and individuals. Okay, actually for vulnerable groups and individuals, usually we have another session, another lecture on just to focus on vulnerable group, because vulnerable group also can lead to conflict of interest as well. So what do I mean vulnerable group? All right, so some groups and individuals are vulnerable, and then they may have increased likelihood of being wrong, or we can incur additional harm to them. All right, so these vulnerable groups should receive specially considered protection. I'll give you an example of vulnerable group. All right, so contoh vulnerable group adalah banyak contoh. For example, katakan kita nak buat study dalam pusat pemulihan dadah lah. Alright, so kita ada pusat pemulihan dadah where the drug addicts put together for their treatment, for their rehabilitation. Okay, so we want to study on them, the drug addicts. So these people are vulnerable group because they are found to be in the wrong, and then they are already in the wrong, they are put together, so they are very vulnerable. Okay, so we have to ensure that we are not causing more harm to them, and they are not additionally wrong. Okay, so we have to tackle how to go about without them feeling that they are forced or coerced into participation in the study. All right, so I don't have ways and methods here, but we have to think of how to handle this, and then of how to overcome that. so that they don't feel that they are being forced, and they feel that they have a right also to reject the study if they don't want. All right, so sometimes people tend to misunderstand and think that, being drug addicts, we can force them, all right, especially by the people in uniform, of by their superiors. So another form of vulnerable group is uh, people, people uh, 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 whereby in jobs, there are hierarchies. For example, in police or in the army, okay, we have brigade general, the generals, and then the captains, and then the officers, and then you have the lowest rank, for example, corporal. So you want to do a study on a policeman, for example, and then you want to do a study on them, and then the lower rank may feel that they are forced. They cannot say no, because the study has to go through the main officers. So we have to think of how not to feel that they feel they are forced to take part in the study. So other examples of vulnerable group, contoh dia macam refugees, alright, and then people with disabilities, they're also vulnerable group. School children also vulnerable group. Okay, contoh you want to do studies in school, and then the teachers tell them, and then they feel that, okay, my teacher asked me to do study. If I don't take part, then my teacher will scold me. So this again not form the vulnerable group. Okay, in our daily practice, our patients are the vulnerable group, because if you are the doctor treating the patient, you want to do the study involving your patient might, if you ask for the consent, your patient might think that, if I don't participate, my doctor will not give me the treatment. Sometimes they think like that, all right? So you have to think ways how to avoid your patients feeling vulnerable. So, for example, not you, the one who asked for the consent. You may tell your medical officer, and the patient do not know that, that the treating specialist, the treating specialists do not know that that particular patient do not want to participate. So our patients can also be in the vulnerable group. All right. So you have to think all this. That's why when I say research is special, it brings ethics from the heart, because you consider the other party, the subjects itself. How would they feel? What would they do? If I were in the same shoe, would I do the same thing? How would I feel? Okay. So you are thinking of another human being besides yourself. And then the next in the thing is, of course, privacy and confidentiality. So we have to ensure that we have to, take all steps to protect the privacy of research subjects, and to ensure confidentiality of their personal information. Okay, like for example, actually I was just chairing the ethics committee just now. We we had an example whereby one of our lecturer wanted to look at psychological factors, for example, anxiety and depression, that can affect the performance of a particular academic. Okay, and that person wants to ask the question, wants to know whether his or her colleagues suffer back pain, and that back pain can cause depression and anxiety, and affect the performance of the colleague. All right. So if I were the lecturer that is working together with this researcher, and if I have depression because of the low back pain, I don't want my colleague, I don't want him or her to know that I have depression, I have back pain, right? And also my performance work performance should be within me and my supervisor or my superior. I don't want people to know that because of my back pain, I have depression, I have anxiety. On top of that, I cannot come to work and my performance goes down. All right. So, so how are you going to handle this as a researcher? Okay, you need to do the study. As a researcher, you need to do the study. So what are the steps that you want to do? Okay, maybe, you may find that the participant do not want to participate. You end up not enough samples. So you have to think how to overcome that. For example, you tell them, okay, I have signed NDA, non-declaration agreement. I will not reveal your information. Okay, maybe things like that lah. Or maybe you want to do in other staff or other type of staff or academics in other institution. All right, you want to ensure privacy and confidentiality. Okay, and then informed consent. Informed consent is usually another topic of discussion lah. It's a separate discussion, but I try to summarize today just in a nutshell. So informed consent is very important lah. All right. So this is part of the research process. You have to get consent from the participant. All right, and then it must be voluntary. Okay, you have to. This is usually we say informed consent because not only you get the consent, you have to inform them what is going to be done in the study, what will happen to them, what is expected of them. So they must not feel that they are being forced again. They must not feel that they are being, the bode or the sugary way of complimentary. For example, if things like if you participate in the study, I'll give you 100 ringgit. They shouldn't be mentioned all that lah. That is sugary punya consent lah. So informed consent is very important. It is a process. It's not just a consent. And then the participant sign. It is a process where you have to explain what is expected, what are the risks, and most important, you have to tell them that if you do not participate in the study, it's okay, all right? And let's say if you feel that halfway you do not want to participate, it's okay. You will not be, victimized or nothing bad will happen to you. You can always, refrain or be taken out of the study at any one time. So that's why I say here, it is a process lah. All right. They must freely agree lah with the study. Okay, they must not be forced. And then this is the timeline lah. Usually, from the time our researchers submit to the ethics committee, they will get whether yes or no within 6 to 8 weeks, provided there is no major correction to the proposal. So it's between 6 to 8 weeks or 2 months, the most, for the ethical approval to be given to the researchers. And then that is the the usual situation, but sometimes we have special situation. For example, during disaster, COVID, COVID pandemic, for example, okay, or undergraduate research. So during the COVID pandemic, when it first started, we speed up the process. We bypass a lot of procedures because that time we think that the pandemic will pass. So we process within 2 weeks the application. Usually the researcher will get whether they approve or not within 2 weeks. We bypass a few processes because we think that the COVID will pass very fast, and the research maybe will not go on but we were wrong. Until today, COVID is still there all right, it's almost 2.5 years. So these are the special situations. Okay, sometimes we give exemption lah for researchers. Sometimes they email us, they ask us, can we not apply for ethics? Yeah, we say yes in certain situation. For example, of course, when they don't involve human participant, or also, human tissue biological samples that you cannot identify to a particular person. All right. And then if there is systematic reviews of literature, meta-analysis or audit, you don't have to apply for ethics lah. All right. And then also is secondary data lah, or data that only is available publicly. All right, the data has been published. You want to use the same data, of course, you don't have to get ethical approval. Okay, and then sometimes there's a category called expedited. Just now I said it takes like 8 weeks for the usual proposal to be approved. There's also a category called expedited. We try to be as fast as possible. Usually the chairperson will make the decision. For example, they expedited review criteria. They don't involve vulnerable population. They not involve collection of stigmatizing information, and then anonymous or archive sample. Okay. Continuous review of clinical trials that do not involve further recruitment, and then study protocol amendment. So this is all expedited. Yeah. Okay, I think I've come to the last part of the presentation. So these are the questions that usually will be asked by our researchers. The frequently asked question here is, should all academic and postgraduate students undertaking a research involving participation of humans as subject apply for ethical approval? Yes, of course, the students can apply by himself. All right, and then if the student is the PI, the student can apply. Usually when the students are invited, we also invite the supervisors to sometimes to assist the students to make clearer. Sometimes students so usually supervisors have to be there when the students present. Yeah. So another frequently asked question is is the role of main supervisor and course very important in educating students about applying for ethical approval? Yeah, of course. The supervisors have equally important roles to educate the students for applying ethical approval. So this especially happened about 4 or 5 years ago when students come and say, I don't know that I have to get ethical approval, and the study has been completed. So it was a hard work for us, because that time we have to go through PhD thesis of the student to ensure that the ethical human ethics is not there is no ethical issues pertaining to that study. But now we have educated, it's a continuous process. We go to the postgraduate department, and then we inform through letters, through courses, through roadshows, that students must apply for ethical approval before the research is done, not even completed. That means you cannot start the research if the ethics is not there. All right. So the ethics approval must be before the research commences. So it's a continuous process, but Alhamdulillah, the awareness is there compared to before. All right. And they don't give us thick thesis, PhD thesis for us to review now. Otherwise, imagine we have to look at review thick PhD thesis. So, and we also write letters to the supervisors as well, even to the deputy vice chancellor of research, to say that students must get ethical approval. All right. Okay, this is another frequently asked question. I think I've covered principal investigator, principal investigator can be student, can be lecturers, can be other staff as well. All right. So if the PI is a student, the PI is responsible to apply for ethical approval and vice versa. Okay. So ethical approval is crucial to obtain research grants, to successfully pass thesis evaluation, and to publish in scientific journals. And I stress here before the start of the research. And in conclusion, well, research is never easy. You have to apply, write grants, write good grants, write winning grants, okay? And then on top of that, ethics, is another struggle for you, all right? But the ethics approval is there to protect the participant and also for the researchers and institution, because after all, to be able to conduct research in ethical environment and with integrity, and at the same time we protect the human subject is our utmost important for for everything, for the researcher, for the participant, for the research, and also for the community as well. All right. So with that, I think that's all. Thank you very much to all the people, to all the audience here. So back to Dr. Betty.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prof. Your lecture is very interesting, clear, and complete, Prof. Yeah. Any question from participant? Because we going to Q&A session. Maybe any question from the resident, please, because resident do research, yeah, as a principal investigator too. So they propose the ethic. Ada yang mau mengajukan pertanyaan? Silahkan, please. Dr. Vida from the chat room, any question?
There is no question, Dr. Betty.
Oh, maybe very clear, Prof.
Dr. Betty, can I ask question?
Yeah, please, Dr. Vida.
Thank you, Professor Narazah. I often read announcement about researchers looking for participants for their research, and it is written that the participants will be given some amount of money as compensation. Is it allowed, Prof? Thank you.
Okay. Usually our practice is we don't say we give amount of money. We just say compensation will be given.
Yeah.
So you know why we do this? Because we do not want to attract unrelated participant, all right? And sometimes when we do this, especially clinical trials, clinical trial is, the industry is very rich. Sometimes they can pay up to 600 ringgit Malaysia. So once a researcher put there, RM ringgit Malaysia 600 given to participant, everybody got excited lah, because the amount of money is very big. So we call up the researcher and say, please don't put the amount of money, just say, compensation will be given. They only know it when they have participate in the study.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Narazah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vida. Yeah, Prof, I want to ask from the subject, usually they want to know what we do in their blood that we take as a samples. So is it allow we share our result? I mean our result from the test that we do in our research.
Okay, it depends on what information that you tell the participant lah. Alright, because usually we have a borang lah form, from what is expected you as a participant in the study, and then what are the benefits that they will get from the study. All right, so usually we don't tell. Usually we don't tell, and we cover this in the benefit of the study. All right.
Oh yeah.
The benefits that they get. So you know, because this is a research, right? This is at the research level, so the results may, you know, may not be so relevant to them. So again, I said, based on what information you give in the, you know, what is expected, what information, because they have to read first, you know, their agreement, and then that they have to sign. Okay. So it depends on you lah. If you think you want to give the results and it doesn't jeopardize the research itself, for example, then it's up to the researcher. Depend on the data as well. For example, kalau genetic data kan, selalu kita ada macam kita nak tengok polymorphism, contoh dia kan. Nak tengok polymorphism in hypertension, for example, diabetes. So kalau kita cakap to the patient, does it alter dia punya whatever, you know, and will they understand as well? And ini saya rasa sentuh benefit, kena weigh the benefit and the risk lah. Alright. Contoh kalau you cakap dia ada polymorphism, hypertension, it may worry them, right? It may worry them, they may misunderstand. Then kalau in that way, mungkin you will say that lah, the results, you know, counselling will be given, contoh dia kan, genetic counselor. So don't promise things that, you know, you mungkin jadi ni lah, can be macam grey area lah. Alright. So again, it's very macam it depend on the objective of the study, the methodology, the expectation. Alright. So well, it's very subjective.
Thank you, Prof. Any question, please? You said that the investigator must be trained, Prof. Any certification that investigator must be fulfilled for the ethical approval, Prof?
Training in the sense that if trained in the sense that, you know, let's say you need somebody for statistical analysis, that person of course must be the expert lah, the trained, you know, or you know, the expertise is statistical analysis. That's one aspect, but the other aspect is trained in the sense that, you know, you want to do a clinical trial, Dr. Betty. Clinical trial, contoh dia lah, nak you know, a company approaches you, a pharmaceutical company approach you, wants you to do on 10 subjects new drugs, okay, control water, and then the other arm is new drug. So new drug, of course, they have, you know, side effect which may be undocumented as well. All right, new side effects. So in this case, very good example is they have to be trained and they have to have a certificate which is called GCP, Good Clinical Practice Certificate. This is a training, 3 days training, And then they have to sit for exam. Exam, you know, imagine 3 hari training, lepas tu kena sit exam. Lepas tu kalau dia
Yeah.
pass, kita bagi sertifikat dan dia boleh continue lah dengan dia punya clinical trials. Kalau tidak, dia
It's
tak
the
boleh.
same, Prof, with us in our hospital. All of principal investigator may have a certificate, should have certificate.
Ya, GCP lah kita panggil.
GCP, yeah.
Sama lah.
Please, there is one question, Prof. I will read it from the Dr. Sari, Yuliana Dar Indra Sari. If there are some laboratory parameters from past research that have not been published, if those parameters will be processed with statistic formula again, do we need ethical submission to get ethical approval?
Okay, I think quite common situation kan, kita selalu hadapi lah situation macam ni since we work in the lab. So saya tak tahulah praktis di sana, tapi praktis kami di sini, dia lab data ni actually kalau dia nak publish lab data, dia nak buat statistical analysis, dia hanya minta kebenaran daripada ketua section atau ketua jabatan, alright, and then the other kebenaran adalah pengarah hospital tu lah, okay, and those two approval is important lah because they are the guardian lah of the data. Ketua hospital lah, we call pengarah, the director of the hospital, and then the person in charge of the lab lah, alright. So with that information, kita dapat, we will write our manuscript and we will send to the research ethics committee punya chairperson lah. Kita minta dia approval dia, mengatakan that this data is data macam for audit or for survey, you know, but already got the permission from the guardian of the data, the hospital and the chief makmal lah. So you need not to fill up forms or need not send research proposal. So you shortcut lah, ya. Tapi kena minta ethical approval jugalah daripada ethics committee by sending your draft manuscript. Itu praktis kami di sinilah, Dr. Yulia.
Thank you, Prof. Narazah.
Cuma I don't know whether I answer or not. Do we need to get ethical resubmission to get ethical approval? I hope you answer, Dr. Yulia.
Gimana,
Wait,
Dr. Sari?
Yeah.
Wait. I clarify balik. If there are some lab parameters from past research, okay, that past research dah dapat ethical approval kan? Is it?
Sudah, Prof.
Sudah, then tak payahlah.
Tak perlu ya, Prof ya?
Tak perlu. You already get. Tapi cuma you tak publish aja kan?
Iya, publish parameter lain, Prof.
Ya. Sudah ada, tak apa.
Just permission, Prof.
Ya.
Take permission from the first investigator.
Permission from first investigator.
Yeah, that have the data before. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Because apa yang saya faham, research tu sudah dibuat tapi tidak publish kan?
Yeah, Prof.
Iya, betul.
Tapi dia dah dapat ethical approval kan?
Iya, dari parameter sudah.
So tak payahlah sebab dia sudah dapat ethical approval, cuma mungkin dia nak kira balik kan?
Iya.
Cuma dia tak publish, tapi later on dia discover, okay, this data will be interesting now, before maybe not relevant. So already got the approval lah. So basically, kalau you nak publish, the journal tu nak lah a copy of the ethical approval. Alright?
Yeah.
Ya, Prof. Jadi menggunakan ethical approval yang sudah pernah ya, Prof ya.
Yeah.
Dan mungkin izin ke co-author yang lain mungkin ya, Prof, atau yang ke first principal investigator mungkin ya, Prof ya. Kalau mungkin itu siswa atau PPDS mungkin begitu ya, Prof.
Okay, you mean bukan the researcher, the PI tu bertukar, is it?
Maybe Dr. Sari tell the story. The history.
Mungkin dari penelitian saya, Prof, mungkin ada beberapa parameter yang belum dipublish. Itu kemudian akan dipublish kembali. Berarti kan tidak perlu, karena saya sebagai peneliti utama, jadi kan tidak perlu saya tidak perlu submit ke ethical lagi kan, Prof. Jadi saya cukup menggunakan ethical approval yang lama, gitu ya, Prof. Ya, maksudnya.
Iya, yang dia provided itu research yang sama lah, alright?
Iya, cuma parameternya belum dipublish.
Tak payahlah. Unless kalau you change your objective, you change you punya problem statement, change title, yang tu macam kira new application kan.
Iya, Prof. Terima kasih, Prof. Narazah.
Sama-sama.
Thank you, Prof. Any question more? No? Yeah. Okay. There is no more question, Prof, and the time pass. Yeah. Okay. Terima kasih, Prof. Thank you so much for the lecture. I think we get many things about the ethic in human research today. Thank you so much. I think I will stop our discussion. I will back the event to Dr. Rafida. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Narazah. Thank you, Dr. Betty. Maybe we can take a photo together. Participants can open their cameras.
A lot of photo session.
Yes. I will count 1, 2, 3, and we'll take a shot on 3. So for the first screen, 1, 2, 3, and for the second screen, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we finish our photo session, and I sincerely thank to all the audience for taking time to attend this event from the beginning to the end. And I apologize for any mistakes in presenting this event. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih kepada semua.
Thank you, Professor Narazah. And we will close the Zoom meeting for the lecture. And Zoom meeting will be open 10 minutes later for small group discussion.
Okay. Thank you again, Dr. Betty, Dr. Rafida, and the rest.
Prof.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.